Hey guys, how you doing? I wanted to show you the Edge Pro Pro clone and the Edge Pro Apex clone, and kind of do a little comparison with them, pros and cons of each one, and show you kind of what they came with, and talk about a few of the tips that I picked up from other YouTube videos and from forum users that I kind of had wished all would have been in one place, but there's a lot of information out there, and I'll include some links to some really useful forum threads and really useful YouTube videos that I found. And I'll kind of try to condense that all here to what I figured out in the last few weeks using these things. So start with the Edge Pro Apex clone. This thing came with these four stones right here. And a lot of people say that these stones are really crappy, and I would agree. It came with a 120, 400, 800, and a 1500 stone. And I will tell you something that I learned that I didn't know, and I've done a lot of sanding with like woodworking type stuff, is that there's no universal grit standard. 120 on this stone may be a 320 of another brand of stone, and so on and so forth. There's no standardization, and there's some crossover like grit comparison charts for stones that you can look at, but they kind of tend to include only the kind of like established brands or the higher end stones. So you can do like, you can compare the crossover grit from like an Edge Pro stone to Sharpening or Shapton. I'm not sure what those are called exactly, but you can do comparisons of like higher end stones to see how the grits compare to each other. But I didn't really find any crossover charts for these kind of crappy Chinese stones, or the Ruixin stones, or Rusin. I don't know how you pronounce that either. The Edge Pro Apex came with this stuff, these stones, a little microfiber cloth, a Sharpie, a little guidebook, that's actually to the other one, but same thing, and it came with this carrying case, which is kind of neat, and it didn't say it came with it in the description, so that's kind of nice. I actually kind of like that. And it also came with a tiny bottle of oil, which I decided I wasn't going to use right off the bat. I opened it and I smelled it, and it smelled terrible. And I've also read that if you start using stones with oil, they're pretty much oil stones. You can't really go back. Whereas with water, you can kind of decide whether you like using them with water or with a little bit of soap, or just using them dry, and then you can change to oil if you want to. But once you go to oil, you're kind of stuck using oil with that stone because it absorbs the oil and has oil in it. That's at least my understanding of it. So I started using these stones with water and a little bit of soap, and I noticed that they would load up really fast with metal shavings. So like this one right here is loaded up pretty good with metal shavings. And I read somewhere online that with soap it tends to load up faster. That was definitely my experience. So I switched to just start using water, and I got this little squirt bottle, and I'll kind of show you what I do with it to clean the stones in a little bit. But I will tell you that one of the things that I read about using stones is that you really want to make sure that your stones are flat, and these stones came super bowed, and I think I can still kind of show you on one of them. I was looking, oh yeah, so if I press these ends together, I get a huge gap on that side. So they were super bowed, even more than this in the middle. And they were also significantly different thicknesses, and I'll talk a little bit about how the thickness of the stone affects the angle on here, and a trick that you can use to get rid of that play. But something that you definitely want to buy right off the bat is either a lapping stone or this silicon carbide here, and Edge Pro sells this silicon carbide in this bag, and you get a bunch of it for $5. And this is used to flatten your stones, and I would really get this right off the bat when you're ordering this kit, because those things came so bowed, and I didn't really realize it at first, and I just couldn't get anything sharp. And as soon as I flattened my stones, I had my first successful sharpening. So this is a must buy with this kit because you're going to get bowed stones guaranteed. So another thing I'll show you is that I flattened all these stones. I started getting good results right away, and then one of these stones, instead of the writing going away on it, actually has like some sort of a raised up, I don't know what that is. The way that they marked the grid of the stone, it says grinding oil stone. This is actually raised up, so this stone is just total crap, and I can't use this for sharpening anymore. So one of these stones is basically unusable. Another thing that I did right off the bat, since I ordered this silicon carbide from Edge Pro, I went ahead and ordered, they sell suction cups for the bottom, and they cost $1. And by the way, that silicon carbide costs $5. And I replaced the cups on this. The cups on the bottom of this were like super crappy. I mean, they actually stuck, but I thought since I was ordering that, I'd upgrade these anyways. But they were like really dirty, and one of them was yellow, and I don't even know how you produce. It was like they found used cups or something like that, used suction cups to include in the kit, and they were just like bent all over. But they did stick to the table, so I just kind of did that because they're $1, and these are Edge Pro. These are the same cups that Edge Pro Apex uses, and you just screw them off, and then you can screw them back on, and they stick really well, and they're just kind of a nice little upgrade. And I think I tossed the other cups. So I will show you. So the way that this assembles is that the arm slides in here, and then there's a little nub right there, and it slides into that groove and twists, and that's what enables the Apex arm to swivel back and forth. And I read some reviews on Amazon that I guess this is a design that Edge Pro decided that they were going to get rid of because this can wear into the plastic, basically wears a groove into the plastic and isn't as long lasting. I don't know about that. I don't know how long it would take you to wear a groove into that to where that would become an issue. I think it would take you a really long time. So to me, that really seems like a non-issue as a negative for this. But I will show you one thing. So when you put it in mine, that thing actually seated further than that groove, and I was confused at first because I just didn't take a second to kind of understand how this worked, and I was like, mine's broken. So you actually have to lift it up a little bit, or on mine you have to lift it up a little bit and get it seated in that groove, and once you have, you're good to go. But just something to be aware of. So that really shouldn't be like that. It should just bottom out right at that groove so you can turn it. So conversely, if this can kind of get stuck in there sometimes, and I'll show you that a little bit, and it's generally not really a problem. But so Edge Pro Apex, it comes with this little sleeve right here, an adjustment knob, and once you get all this assembled, hopefully you can see that, you just slide these stones right in here, and then you tighten it up. And I saw a review on YouTube too of where somebody was kind of talking of the disadvantages of the Apex clone versus the real Apex, which I guess has a spring, or the Pro, which has a spring, and they were showing that, oh, it's so difficult to get this stone in, like, oh, this just keeps falling. But if you don't have motor difficulty, you should be able to get this stone in just fine. You just hold this with your fingers, and you slide it in, and you hold it, and you tighten it. And it's really easy. I don't really know what the problem is there. I will say a couple of the problems that I've had with the Apex so far. So the screw that was included in this part right here barely had any threading into this little cube. And when I was sharpening, just after a few strokes, like 2 or 3 strokes, it was basically coming loose and falling out. So I went to the hardware store and I found a screw that was longer, and I just put in a couple of washers because the screw is actually too long, and now it's pretty tight. I did read, it still is coming loose on me, and I was going to use some Loctite, and I read on some of the RC cars and helicopter threads that you don't want to use Loctite on plastic, and these are threaded into plastic. And that's one of the negatives that people talk about, that these are threaded into plastic and they're going to break and whatnot. So apparently Loctite, regular Loctite, will eat plastic, and so Loctite makes some really expensive form of Loctite that is okay to use in plastic. But the other thing I read in the forums is that just a little bit of super glue is fine with plastic, and since you really don't need to be backing this screw in and out ever, it actually just needs to stay in one spot, that super glue seems like a really good solution. You just want to put a little super glue and tighten it, and then get it to the point where this is playing freely in this direction, but not in the other direction, not that way, and just let it dry right there, and you should be good to go. I'm going to do that probably today. So that is one negative, is that mine came with a really tiny screw that just keep falling out. So just be aware of that, and you can go get a screw for, a longer, quarter-inch longer screw for 7 cents, and put in a couple of these washers for 5 cents. That's pretty much solved it. Actually, this will really, even without the super glue, it's really coming undone quite a bit slower than before, and isn't really a problem for me. So I'll probably put some super glue when it starts to finally annoy me. The apex comes with markings at 24 degrees, 20 degrees, 18 degrees, 15 degrees, and 10 degrees. So 5 degrees, 3 degrees, 2 degrees, 4 degrees. I don't know why they decided to mark it at a different amount of degrees on each one, but I will tell you that that is kind of confusing to me. It hasn't really been a huge issue, and I'll show you why, because I really haven't been using these all that much. But the Apex Pro clone comes with 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. And that makes a whole lot more sense to me for the spacing that you would want to do on the rod, but whatever. For the Apex clone, the way that the swivel action works is the arm clamps to this rod, and it stays clamped on it, and it swivels in that back piece like I showed you. Being that this is threaded into plastic, it does come loose sometimes, and you have to redo it. That design is definitely not as good as the one on the Pro clone. And the Pro clone, I believe this is actually the same way that the actual Apex or the actual Edge Pro one does it, is this plastic part is sitting on this metal rod, and it swivels, and it can swivel all the way around. And I believe it's held in with this little pin here, and maybe there's a groove in this rod. I'm not 100% sure how that works, but I'll tell you that it definitely feels smoother, because instead of kind of turning on that plastic there and having to really clamp down on this rod, it just swivels on that, and it feels a lot smoother, and I like that a lot more. So that's kind of a plus to this thing, is the way that the stone arm actually swivels is, I believe, better on this one. So let's see what else we got here. Let's just move on to this one, and I'll talk about some of the pros and cons that I've found so far with this one. So this one came with stones that were branded with the actual Ruin, whatever it is. Came with a 120, 320, 600, and a 1500. And I'll tell you, these stones feel better right off the bat. They didn't seem as incredibly bowed as the ones that came with an Apex. They still were not perfectly flat, so I'd still recommend flattening them. And they weren't all different thicknesses. They were pretty similar thickness, whereas with one of these, it was like really a lot thinner than the rest of them. So these stones are a little better off the bat. The way that this swivels is a little bit better, and the way that the height or the angle that you're going to put on your knife edge gets adjusted is different. With this, you move the stone arm up and down on the rod, which stays in one place. And with the Pro, I should move that out of the way. With the Pro, you are actually moving the entire arm up and down. So those are just differences to be aware of. I'm not sure they don't really make a huge difference in terms of result. Also, the way that this suctions to the table, it's got this big arm, and if you've ever seen those, like apple peeler cores, that's what they use. And it's got this arm that you put it flat on the table and you flip the arm over and it suctions this part up, so it suctions to the table. And I'll say that the suction on this is really, really good. I would say it's almost too good, and I would be careful because when taking it off after it's been suctioned for a while, it really wants to stick, and I'm kind of afraid of ripping it. So I take an edge up and I peel it up really gently because it gets really stuck on there. I don't know if it's a pro or a con. Honestly, the suction cups on the apex stick really well. I haven't had a problem with them coming off. And I had one of those apple core peeler things a long time ago, and this ended up breaking. And I'm kind of thinking that, like, this is more prone to breaking than two little suction cups. And if those do break, you pay $1 and get 2 new suction cups. So I don't know. It's kind of up to you to decide what you think is better there. I kind of like this actually over this because this kind of worries me. So while I had a problem with the little screw coming loose here, I fixed that with an extra screw. With this, I'm having a much bigger problem, and that is that when I tighten the table down, so the way that you're supposed to do it is you loosen up this back arm here, and this is called the tensioning arm, I believe, on the regular Edge Pro. And you get this table to where you want it via this swivel here, and you tighten it down all the way. It will still move, and that sucks. And I'm not really sure how to solve that. This is tightened down as tight as I can get it. And the thing with the Edge Pros is that you have to be able to hold the blade firmly flat on the table. And that's one of the things that some people don't like about it and have trouble with, is that you can't be messing around with your blade changing angle. So you have to be able to hold it really firmly. And so far I've found that for me, especially as I hold towards the end where I really want to push down, and this is probably just a skill thing. I'm sure you could get it to where you're not doing this. I'm pushing down kind of hard to make sure that I'm flat and keeping my angle consistent. This thing starts to move. And I don't know what to do about it. I guess I could, one solution that I was kind of thinking about was possibly wrapping the ball. I'll just show you how this attaches. Wrapping the ball in some electrical tape, and that would kind of thicken this area here so that this has some more ability to tighten down on it. Oops, I'm screwing that up. But as of right now, the way it comes, when I'm sharpening, it starts to move, and I hate it. And it also starts to move side to side. I mean, it just moves in all directions, and it sucks. So the way that you're supposed to do it is you're supposed to get this tight and kind of where you want the bed, and then this tensioning arm you push down and you push up a little bit on the bed so that it has a nice tension, and then you tighten this down. This thing works, except it starts floating off the table as I start sharpening. You can see, I mean, I tighten it down real sharp, and it just really doesn't take much to get it to go. The other thing I've noticed is that if you want to get a low angle on your blade, this arm has to go down. So at its furthest down, you're at its lowest angle. So right now I'm not even at its lowest angle, which is 10 degrees. So the blue line is a few degrees up above it. I have to really tilt this thing. So here, if I want it 10 degrees per side, this rod starts hitting the counter. So I have to really raise it so that the bed angle is down this way. And just for me so far, I really have preferred sharpening my knives on this bed that has this angle. It's just been more comfortable for me. I can see the edge. Whereas if I want a really low angle, I have to tilt this down so my edge is more down. So I kind of prefer this one so far for that, because I can adjust my angle all the way down and I don't have a problem with that. So take that for what you will. Another thing I noticed, and I just noticed this since I've been using both of them in the last few days, is that Let me just make sure that everything's in the shot. Okay. The table on the Pro is slightly longer than the table on the Apex clone, and it's like a 1/4 inch, maybe 3/8 of an inch, and so far this has been a disadvantage for me, and the reason is that when you put a stone in, let's just put a stone into this one. When you put a stone in, and let's say you put a kitchen knife on, and the way you adjust it is to the tip. Once I'm at the widest part of the edge, I have an inch of stone that's not able to come out. So I'm wasting an inch of stone, and I'm sharpening, or I'm wearing down the stone from here this way on the Pro. And the Pro also has this little plastic piece that's supposed to stop it from coming off. So I tried to take that off to see if I could get a little bit extra. And when that happens, you start coming out when you sharpen. So that just doesn't work. And you just don't have that problem with the Apex. That 3/8 of an inch or whatever makes that big of a difference. That you can come out all the way to the edge of the stone and you still have a little bit on the outside there to where you're not coming out of it. So that's kind of a big deal because I just kept coming off and whacking my edge with the rod on the Pro. That 3/8 of bed length makes all that difference. And I'll show you with an even bigger stone, and I'll transition to these stones in a second. So these stones are Congress stones, and if you look around for stone replacements, this is what a lot of the guys in the forums recommend, is these Congress stones. They're actually even longer than the stones that come with the kits. Well, they're longer than those ones anyways. That one's similar. So these are all a little bit of a different size actually. Some of them are longer. So you can see that one. There you go. That one's like a 1/4 inch longer than the stones that come with the sets or the clones. So when you put one of these stones in, see, this one's a lot longer. When you put these stones in, that problem becomes even more pronounced. So on the Apex clone, I can get all the way to the edge of the stone, and with the Pro clone, and the beds are adjusted about the same. Actually, the Pro one's even a little bit further back. I'm way away. I'm 3/4 of an inch away from being able to get to the end of that stone. So, I mean, that kind of sucks. So I'll say that I think I kind of touched on most of the basic comparisons of these two. If you have any questions about any of that stuff, feel free to ask me. But I will say that this one I really prefer for those reasons. Especially the stone length makes a huge difference on this one. But also adjusting this, I think adjusting this one is actually better. And I don't know if the Real Pro, I bet you that the Real Pro is higher up off the table, and so bringing this down to a really low angle doesn't mean that you have to raise the bed up like you do on this clone. So I would go ahead and get one of these Apex clones personally, and I think that I'll probably be sending this one back, honestly, because it just seems to have a bunch of problems, and this thing being loose to me is not a problem that I see an easy solution for, and so I don't know, that really bothers me. The other thing is, this thing is $22. This one was $38. I'll post the links up for you so you can take a look at them. Save $16 and get some of these other stuff with that $16, because I don't see an improvement of this one over this one, and in fact overall this one's just better in my opinion. So now that I've kind of done a comparison of those two, I'll just move this one aside. Oh, let's say, sorry, one more thing. I'll just add that the spring actually is a better feature, and you will probably want to just swap out this little collar for this spring, because with the Mold Master stones, which some of them are a little longer, the Congress stones, than these stones, you really have to back this up to where this is almost falling off to get these stones to fit. And with this, you can give it a lot more. You can get a lot more space. So I will say that is better on this one. But a spring is a very easy and very cheap upgrade at the hardware store. So that doesn't really that's really kind of neither here nor there. So now that I've compared these two, I will take one of them out of the picture here, and I'll talk about some of the upgrades that you should get, or some of the accessories that you really want to get right off the bat with these things, and that's whether you're getting a real Edge Pro or an Edge Pro clone. The real Edge Pro doesn't come with any of this stuff either. So the first thing that you want to get is a drill stop collar, and none of the stores around here sold drill stop collars in a single, and you can get them on Chef's Knives to Go, but after shipping it's like $10 or $12 for a drill stop collar, and I got this whole set for $5. And I bet you the one they sell is better. This one's kind of crappy, but for $5 I got a set of them, and I'll throw these in my drill box to have if I need. I really have never found much need for drill stop collars, but they definitely do have some uses. So drill stop collar, and the reason for a drill stop collar is they account for the differences in stone thickness. And I won't talk about this a ton. I'll link to a couple of videos that talk about this, but I will just kind of say real quick that you really want to familiarize yourself with this concept, because if you don't, you're going to have problems and you're not going to understand why. And I'll just do a really exaggerated a quick explanation of this. If you are using one of these stones, or if you're using an Edge Pro stone, which are 1/8 of an inch thick, you have a certain angle that this stone is coming down at in relation to this table. And if you then put on, let's say, a stone that's twice this thick, what happens? It gets raised up twice as much, and this angle changes in relation to this table. So the drill stop collar is set to the thickness of a stone, the first stone that you're going to use, or whatever angle you want, and then it's set and left there. And when you use a thicker stone, see, that one doesn't fit in between the drill stop collar and here because of the stone and because of possibly the backer. You unscrew this and you put it on the drill stop collar and you drop this down, and that accounts for the difference in thicknesses. So drill stop collar, really big deal, and I'll link to a longer video of a guy explaining how to use them if that didn't make sense. But you definitely want to familiarize yourself with that and get one of these. The next is you want some masking tape or painter's tape. This is actually painter's tape, which is supposed to be a little more water resistant than masking tape. I taped up my table, and also if you have knives that you really care about, or you care about getting scratched, it's recommended that you tape your knives. And this is kind of listed as one of the disadvantages of the Edge Pro system in general, whether it be the clone or the real thing, is that when you're sharpening, a slurry of the stone and metal shavings builds up on the table underneath your knife, and especially with a kitchen knife, where you're moving it along, you're going to scratch the back of your blade. I've not taped any of my blades because I don't care about them in terms of them scratching. They're all users. But that's something to be aware of, and also it will kind of abrade the plastic on the table, so you put some tape on to kind of keep that from happening, and then you can replace it as it gets worn out and so on. So tape, get some tape. The next thing is if you want to upgrade your stones, Congress is the company that a lot of people list as really good stones, and they're a lot cheaper than the Edge Pro stones, than the real Edge Pro stones. And they're twice as thick. So let me see. I got a Mold Master. So their Mold Master category is the one that you see recommended a lot in a bunch of different forums. I got the Mold Master 240, 320, 400, And then I got the ruby stone in a 150 grit, which is supposed to be, just this pink one, supposed to be a good reprofiling stone. And then I got the flex stone in a 600 grit, which is supposed to be like almost near polishing stone, not quite, but a good hard kind of finishing stone. And you can go crazy with a bunch of different stones. I just got, what did I get? 5 of them. Where are they? 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 somewhere. And what you do is you get this piece of aluminum bar stock. You can get them in most hardware stores. I got them at Ace here. And they come in 1 inch by, I think this is a quarter, looks like a 1/4 inch or an 1/8 inch by 4 feet. And I just cut them on an angle grinder. And you get this Super 77 3M glue. You spray it all over one side of your stone, all over one side of this. You line them up, press them together, and they stick. And you've got this nice aluminum backer, which for me, I just kind of like aesthetically that I now have something that's metal instead of these ones, which are plastic, which a lot of people complain about. And also when you are, when this stone starts wearing really thin after you've flattened it a bunch, you've sharpened out it a bunch, you can throw this into a boiling pot of water and they come apart and you reuse these backers. And Edge Pro sells these backers. You can get them from them and they're $5 a piece. Compared to, I bought 48 inches of this aluminum backer for $10, and I've heard it's a lot cheaper. I bought it at Ace, which is more expensive than any store I've been in, but that's what we have here in my town. I bought these at Ace, so I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then there's a 7th one laying around. I got 7 of these out of it for $10, so $1.25 or whatever, a little over $1 for each one instead of $5 each one. So you can make those yourself. And also these stones, so the 240, 400, and 320 grits were $4 and $5 a piece, and the ruby stone was $3.95, and the flex stone was $7. Compare that to the Edge Pro stones, which are $9 each, and they're half the thickness. And I've heard that these work just as well as the Edge Pro stones, and a lot of people prefer them to the Edge Pro stones. So go with these stones if you want to upgrade your stones. And I would say you don't really need to do that right away. You'll probably notice a big difference, but definitely flatten your stones that came with your kit. If you don't want to upgrade your stones right away, make sure that you keep them flat. And these stones should be able to get you going and get you knife sharpening just as good as any other stone. And I'll link you to a couple of videos of this guy who's really active in the forums and on YouTube, and he does a bunch of knife testing and knife sharpening, and he gets knives cutting through phone book paper and shaving off of a 24 grit stone and off of a regular clay brick. So really, it's a lot more about the skill than the stone, and these stones are just fine for getting started out as long as you keep in mind that they need to be flattened. Otherwise, if they start dishing really badly, and these stones probably will faster than a better stone, that you're going to have a hard time getting good results, and you're not going to be able to figure out why. So definitely flatten those stones and just start out with these, and then when you're ready, upgrade to some Congress stones. Let's see, what other kind of must-have accessories? One that I don't have yet, but that everybody keeps saying is a must-have, and now that I've started sharpening a little bit, I'm realizing that it is a jeweler's loop, and I don't have one to show you. It's just a magnifying glass. Get one of those so you can look at your edge under magnification and understand what's going on. Everybody says that it is an absolute must, and Sal, who's I believe the founder, owner of Spyderco, says that that is the best learning tool you can have for learning to sharpen a knife, because if you can understand what's going on at your edge, you can start making corrections. So get a jeweler's loop. And the other thing that people recommend is an angle cube. And I've been using my phone. My phone is recording this video right now, so I can't show you exactly how to use it, but I will describe it. An iPhone will double as an angle cube, and what you do is you go into the Compass app. And let's pretend this is my phone. You go into the Compass app and you calibrate it, and then you swipe until you get a degree plane. Set your phone so that it's perfectly flat on the bed. And when you tap the screen, it'll go through a number of different options, and at 1, it'll give you 0. So basically what you're doing is zeroing out the degree finder on this bed, so that when you put your phone onto the stone, either in between, your phone's going to be smaller than this probably, unless you have a big phone, it'll fit onto the stone, and that will give you the angle of the stone in relation to the bed, which is the angle that you're sharpening your knife per side. And I found that these markings are really accurate and match up exactly to my phone finding the angle. So that's nice to know. So if you do want to use these markings, you can go ahead and use them. They're accurate. But, you know, maybe they're different on, since these are kind of cheap Chinese produced things, maybe the markings are different on each one. So you can kind of dial in and figure out whether they're correct and whether you want to use them or not. Or you can get an angle cube, and they're $30, and they're supposed to go to 1/10 of a degree, whereas the iPhone goes to a degree. If you care about that kind of thing, a degree is more than enough for me. So I'm going to be using my iPhone. And anyways, unless you really care about the degree, you can actually get away without doing that entirely if you just want to keep the same exact angle on your edge. That kind of comes to the next accessory / tip, is get a Sharpie, and they come with both of these sets. Different Sharpies come with both of these sets, and learn the Sharpie trick. That's marking the edge to figure out what angle your stone is hitting the edge, whether it's hitting the very apex, or whether it's hitting the back, which is called the shoulder, or whether it's getting nice and even, which is what you want if you're matching the existing edge. Sharpie trick. Google Sharpie trick, look in the forums, figure out how to use a Sharpie. That's really important. What other accessories are there? I kind of think those are pretty much the main ones. Yeah. I set mine up right here near the kitchen sink, and I like to use this little squeeze bottle with water so that when I see a slurry building up, I just swivel over to the top of the sink, and then I just blast off the debris, and that's been working really nicely for me. And I will tell you that you should be getting a sharp edge off of the coarsest grit stone. If you are not, do not move through the grits of the other stones. Practice with this until you're getting a sharp edge off the coarsest grit stone. Otherwise, you're just going to be wasting time. I did that when I started out. I started out by moving through the grits thinking that it would get sharper as it got to the finer stone. Wrong. It just wasted a bunch of my time, because if you can't get it sharp off the coarsest stone, you're going to have trouble removing metal with finer and finer and finer stones. And that's essentially what's getting it sharp, is removing metal till you've apexed the edge. What else? There was one other thing I was going to share with you, and I can't remember what it is now. I will show you, I wanted to show you a knife. This is a thrift store knife that I got sharp yesterday. It's kind of the sharpest knife that I've gotten so far, and this is just to show you that you do not need really fine stones. Somebody was telling me in a forum I posted for help, someone was telling me you don't get to phone book paper cutting until you get to 2000 grit. So this is off a 320 grit Ruixen stone. This is a knife I got from the thrift store. It's a carbon steel blade, and it's not perfect, but this is the sharpest that I've gotten a knife so far, and it is cutting paper off of a 320 crappy Chinese stone. So, oh, that's what I was going to tell you. I was going to kind of talk about this system in general a little bit and what I really like about it. And I have not been sharpening for very long at all, and this is the first system that I've been able to get a knife to even slice paper with. And I used the Sharp Maker, and I used stones, and I'll just tell you what I really like about this system and why I actually think that it's really suited for a beginner. As opposed to things like water stones. And a lot of people in the forums will say, learn on a water stone, learn on a water stone, then move on to this fandangled stuff. I really like this being a beginner because to me, it allows you to control or at least assess all the different variables of sharpening a knife. There's whether or not you can hold the knife steady at an angle. That eliminates this by putting it on the bed flat. Of course, you have some ability to move it around, but you can practice really carefully, really flatly holding it on the table. Oh, and that's one more accessory actually that I'll mention that you can get. You can get a magnet to put under here, and I haven't done that, but I really would like to. And it's recommended for the Real Edge Pro 2. You can get a magnet that you glue under the table here that kind of helps you hold this flat, because being able to hold this flat is a big deal. So having this table to hold this flat, that eliminates a variable of holding the knife steady. And this arm eliminates the variable of, on a bench stone, moving the blade back and forth to keep a consistent angle. So with this, you know that you have a consistent angle, whatever it may be. So that's one variable. You can eliminate the thicknesses of stones on this sharpener by using the collar stop. That's one variable. It basically just lets you play around with a bunch of different variables to figure out what you're doing wrong. Whereas other systems, I think it's slightly more complicated to play with those variables to figure out what's going wrong. So as a beginner, I really, really like the system, and it got me my first phone book knife, phone book paper cutting sharpness on a knife. Can't talk for shit, apparently. And I'm just really stoked on it. So I would say if you have no experience knife sharpening, this is a really, really good system. The Sharpmaker, which is kind of touted as a really, really good beginner system too, I now am understanding kind of its limitations, its pros and cons, and I will say that I'll probably be getting one at some point for touch-ups, because it's really easy to pull out and touch up on. But all of my knives that I had were really dull, and I couldn't get it sharp on the Sharpmaker, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. And controlling the degree and figuring out what degree you have on your knife is a little trickier with that. And overall, I just think this is a great beginner tool. I probably left some stuff out. I don't make YouTube videos very often. In fact, this is my second one. Please let me know if you have any questions. I wish that somebody had a review of this versus the Pro. So I hope that you got some benefit from it. I would definitely pick up all those accessories. And at $22, I mean, this thing is just freaking awesome. The cheapest Edge Pro real one that you can get, I think, starts at $185. And you do get 2 stones with that, but still, I mean, I don't really like knockoff items generally, and I bought some Chinese knockoff knives to try out, and I got rid of them immediately. They're all crap. They're all garbage that I've tried. I guess they're starting to come out with some really good ones now. But this isn't a knockoff per se. What I've read is that the patent expired on the Real Edge Pro, so now companies are starting to come out and make copies of it. So it is a copy, but it's not a clone. And if there was something in between, like if Edge Pro made something in between this and their $185 one, like without stones, so I could save some money on the stones, I would probably be getting that. But at $22, this thing just kills it. Thanks for watching.